Hello everyone. Hello. Am I audible? If I'm audible, just put a thumbs up in the chat. Yeah, I guess I'm audible to everybody. So let's begin today's session. So before I begin the session, I just want to give one small introduction. So basically today, what we're going to learn today is, so before learning, let me introduce myself. I am Pawan Acharya from third year Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Department from Srinivas Institute of Technology, Mangalore. So today we're going to learn about AngularJS, and this is completely for beginners. The beginners, for the beginners who barely even know the A of the AngularJS, like that basic class, so that we can build a strong fundamental so that we can grow on to become a good developer in AngularJS. So as this webinar is just for beginners, I'll be going with the topics that are very basic regarding AngularJS. Uh, and we won't be going into very depth. That is, we won't even touch the advanced part of the AngularJS because for that, first we need to build a strong fundamental base to move on to the advanced topics. Because without a strong foundation, you can't learn anything. It's like learning ABCD, that is learning alphabets before learning the language English as whole. So to learn the language English, we need to learn the alphabets first, right? So that's what we are going to do today. That is to learn the AngularJS as whole, we need to learn the basics of it. That is the fundamental bricks of AngularJS. So before we move on to the technical part of AngularJS, I just want to tell that why do we need AngularJS? And to clarify, some people might have doubt that AngularJS and Angular both are same thing, but it is not. Which means Angular and AngularJS are two different things. Uh, to be more specific, Angular is basically the latest version of AngularJS. That means what we call Angular is the latest version, but and it is and Angular is a framework which utilizes TypeScripts. So basically, TypeScript is superset of JavaScript. Whereas AngularJS is utilizes the framework of JavaScript itself. So to differentiate between Angular and AngularJS, we can say that uh, Angular uses framework from TypeScript. That is superset of JavaScript, not JavaScript. But AngularJS uses frameworks from JavaScript itself. So it's two different things. So I just wanted to differentiate these two things because on YouTube you might find several videos about AngularJS and its title might be Angular. So you might get confused and learn about Angular thinking that is AngularJS, which is not. And vice versa, you can get several uh, YouTube videos related to AngularJS, Angular with the title AngularJS, which is not correct, right? You might learn AngularJS instead of Angular, or vice versa. So it's not correct. So just I wanted to clarify the doubt that Angular and AngularJS is two different things. Yeah. So now let's begin today's session. So what we are going to look today. So today basically we are looking into what is basically AngularJS. This will be our agenda. So the first agenda of today will be AngularJS, or what is AngularJS, followed by why we need AngularJS. After that, we'll see how to enable AngularJS, then some important components of AngularJS, which we'll discuss in a bit detail. Then finally, we'll build a very, very simple web page with the help of AngularJS. So are you guys ready? If you are excited to learn about AngularJS, just drop a comment in the comment section and like this video and subscribe to our channel, that is Srinivas Institute of Technology, Mangaluru. So let's begin today's session. Uh, I hope my screen is visible to everybody. So the first agenda for today is what is AngularJS? So AngularJS is a JavaScript framework. As I said before, AngularJS is a JavaScript framework. And Angular, which is a bit different from AngularJS, is a TypeScript framework, which is superset of JavaScript. So that is the difference between Angular and AngularJS. So what do you mean by JavaScript framework is uh, it is just like a structure. Like while building a certain complex or tower, we need to build one foundation, right? So for that we need pillars. So basically that is framework. It provides structure, that's all. So JavaScript framework are a collection of libraries containing code written in JavaScript. So as the name suggests, the name JavaScript itself suggests that all the framework is written in JavaScript language itself. So I hope you get what JavaScript framework is. Like, let me repeat it once. JavaScript framework is basically a collection of libraries containing codes written in JavaScript. So what do you mean by this is uh, it's basically similar to Python only. In Python, we have math library and other libraries, right, from which we can uh, get several codes. That is Pandas library, Matplotlib library. It's just a that from those libraries, that is, those libraries are already defined, and from that defined libraries, we are retrieving certain codes. So that is basically libraries. And similarly, AngularJS is the JavaScript framework from which we collect or retrieve several sets of codes which are already written in JavaScript. So basically, it makes our life easy because instead of writing the codes in JavaScript from the scratch, we are just retrieving it from AngularJS framework. Yeah, AngularJS framework. So here, each JavaScript framework, like there are several what frameworks, right? Like Node.js, AngularJS, and Angular. These frameworks offers pre-built codes for different areas and different purposes. So that's what we mean by JavaScript framework. I hope everyone is getting what I mean. So it can be added to HTML page with script tag. So to use or enable the AngularJS, we need to add it through script tag in the HTML page. So we'll look onto that in the further slides in detail. So next will be AngularJS extends HTML attributes with directives and binds data to HTML with expressions. So what do you mean by directives and expressions? We'll look onto that in a couple of minutes. So basically, if I want to tell the overview, the directives and expressions basically means that it is just a component of AngularJS. Like there are several other components of AngularJS from which directives and expressions are one of them. Okay. So what directive does is it is used to retrieve certain type of codes, and expressions are basically like variables, if I want to say in very simple language. So next is AngularJS is distributed as JavaScript file and can be added to web page with script tag. As I said before, to add or enable the AngularJS in HTML, add a certain file, that is, as you can see here, we are using this URL, that is, which is present in the source here. That is basically AngularJS. Certain codes are written, that is framework. HTML using tag, and this URL contains a code which is written in JavaScript from which we are gonna retrieve other components of Angular JavaScript. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. If yes, please drop a comment in the comment section. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Yeah. So you might have several questions like why do we need Angular JS? Like if we are using something, then everyone might have a question like why do we need that certain thing? So here also we'll have a question that why do we need Angular JS? So for that question, I have a specific and significant answer that is written in sorry that is written in several points here. So we'll go through by that one by one. So the first one is dynamic web applications. So what do you mean by this is using Angular JS, we can create or generate dynamic web applications. So what do you mean by this is Angular JS enables the creation of dynamic and single page applications. So this is one of the most important application or advantage that we can say of AngularJS because it is separated from other frameworks because of this property. That is, it can create single page applications. So what do you mean by single page application is so what do you mean by single page application is instead of having several web pages for our website, it has this single web page. And to go to several URLs or links, it reloads those links into the same web page. Instead of creating new web page, it has just one single web page from which if we click on any component on that web page, then it will reload that link of the component in that web page itself without creating new web page. So what is the benefit of this is we can say that it takes up less memory space because if we keep on creating like if we keep on creating several web pages, then it will take up memory space, right? So which is not good because if we keep on adding tabs, then it will stack up the tabs and our PC will start working slow, which is of course not a good thing to happen. So that's why single page application is a is the most significant property of AngularJS. It is the primary advantage of why we are using AngularJS. Okay, so now you might have questioned that what applications use this single page, like what are the applications which are single page applications? So the example for that is uh, YouTube and Gmail. So in YouTube, you might have seen while clicking certain components, you'll go into that certain link in that web page itself without creating new web page. So that is what we mean by single page applications. So the next reason why we need AngularJS is data binding. So what do you mean by binding is AngularJS provides two-way data binding, which establishes a connection between model and the view. Your model is data and the view is UI. UI is user interface, which is perceived by the users. And the data is the backend, like what we give the inputs. So what we mean by data binding is it connects the inputs, that is data what we provide, to the UI. Like it is two-way binding. If we do some changes in the UI, it will be applied onto the model, that is data. And if we say, like if we change something in the model that is in data, it will be showed in the view, that is UI. So that is what we mean by data binding. So let's move on to the next reason for why we need AngularJS. So next is modularity and reusability. And what do we mean by this is AngularJS encourages the development of modular and reusable components. So it basically means that it creates a web page in which there are several components. So basically, the web page is divided into several components which are reusable. Like if we use those components once, then that same component can be used again in some other application on the same web page. So through this, through this, we can say that these reasons are fairly important, and like these reasons are fairly important to say that why we need AngularJS. And similar to these reasons, there are several other reasons that why do we need AngularJS, or why do we use AngularJS. There are several more reasons, but as this is a very basic session, we won't dive deep into that, and we'll dive deep into that in the coming sessions, because this is the first part of this AngularJS session. In the coming sessions, we'll dive dive deep into the AngularJS technical terms. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So, as I said before, to enable AngularJS in HTML, we need to add this URL in the script tag of the HTML web page. Like AngularJS is distributed as JavaScript file and can be added to the web page with a script tag. As it says, using a script tag, we can use the AngularJS just by adding the source or the URL into the script, which will enable us to which will enable the AngularJS in the HTML web page. So that's all. Let's move on to the next slide. That is components of AngularJS. So AngularJS has several components like expressions, modules, directories, controllers, and many more. So here I listed just a few of them. That is the basic ones. While moving on to the next sessions of AngularJS, we'll get to know other components also, but it won't be covered by me. It will be covered by my college mates. So as I said, expressions, modules, directives, and controllers are one of the basic components of AngularJS. So let's dig deep into this. So first one is expressions of AngularJS. So what do we mean by expressions of AngularJS is it's basically variable, like variable or any expression which is solved. Like for example, as we have mentioned here, 5 plus 5. So here it's an expression like what is 5 plus 5? It will be solved. That is 5 plus 5 is 10. And that will be returned to the web page. So instead of using variable here, we are directly passing the constants. Whereas we can also use variables as we have used here, that is first name plus there is one space over there and plus last name. So what do we mean here is instead of first name, the value of the variable first name will be printed over there, and after that one space will be given, and after that the value of last name will be printed over there. So creating, for example, in the variable first name we have given Pavan, let's say my name, and in the variable last name we have given my surname, that is Acharya. So while printing, it will print Pavan Acharya instead of first name and last name. So here, first name and last name acts as variables. Okay, I hope you understood what I said. So let's move on. AngularJS expressions can be written inside double braces. That is, this is the syntax of writing expression. That is, inside two curly brackets, we have to write the expression, whatever it may be, like adding of variables, adding of constants, concatenation of strings, like we have done here in the previous example. Or else we can also use ng bind equals to and expression written in apostrophes, that is double quotes. So there are two ways to write expressions, that is brackets, and one is using the directive ng hyphen bind equals to and expression written inside double quotes. So here bind is a directive which we'll get to know in the further sessions, and ng is basically like it indicates that it's built-in AngularJS directive. Like ng basically means AngularJS, that's all, and it indicates that the next term after the hyphen is a directive. Okay, so let's move on. AngularJS will resolve the expression and return the result exactly where the expression is written. So as I said before, if we pass on certain variables, let's take another example. If we say, like, let's say there is one variable called as subscript. Sorry, there is a variable uh, called as number. Okay, let's say number. The variable's name is number, and the value of that number is 2. And there is another variable whose name will be number 2. and its value will be 4. So I'll repeat it once again. There are two variables. First variable's name is number one. Second variable's name is number two. And the value of first one is 2, and the value of second one is 4. And to write the expression, we'll write one expression, that is 2 star 2. Sorry, number one star number 2. So what do we mean here is number one is multiplied by number 2. So that is the expression. So it will be written inside two curly brackets, that is number one star number 2, and the two curly brackets will be closed. And while we pass this expression, instead of printing it as it is, it will give the answer of the expression, that is 2 into 4 will be 8, which was the value of number 1 and number 2, and those two are multiplied, and it will be given us an output. So that is what we mean by AngularJS will resolve the expression and return the result exactly where the expression is written. And it can contain literals, operators, variables, and constants, several such things. To get a certain output, we'll use expressions, or to solve some mathematical equations, or to concatenate two strings. For those purposes, we'll use expressions. I hope you're getting what I say. So let's move on to the next part. That is like so this is just an example of what I said previously. Here on the first line, yeah, this is just a structure of HTML, basic structure of HTML. In that, we are enabling AngularJS using the script tag, in which we have given an URL of the AngularJS, and after that, in the body, we have made one division, and inside that we have given the name. Like here, we have not given the name in the double quotes, but inside those double quotes, we have to give the name of this web application. And it is confirmed that we are giving the name here by this directive, that is ng-app. So whenever we write ng-app, we mean that we are giving name to that certain web application. So here it means it is nameless, but normally we give certain name inside those double quotes. So, sorry. Inside the p tag, we have written my first expression, that is 5 plus 5 inside two curly braces. So what will be the output is 10. My first expression 10. It won't print these in that specific way. Like it won't print curly braces 5 plus 5. Instead of that, it will print 10. Okay. I hope you are getting it. So let's move on to the next part, that is modules of AngularJS. So what do we mean by modules of AngularJS? Is an AngularJS module defines an application. So basically, modules are just applications, and the module is a container for different parts of the application. So as it is an application kind of thing. So the certain parts or several parts of the application will be contained inside the module. Okay, and we'll get to know the example in next slides, coming slides. The module is a container for application controllers also. So here controller is part of module. We can say that. So that's why it is written in the next line that controllers always belong to a module. Like we can't write controllers without a module. We have to write a module. After that only we have to mention the controllers. I hope you get it. So let's move on to the example of modules. Yeah. So as I said, inside the NG app, we have to write the name of the application. So here, instead of blank double quotes, we have a certain name that is my app. So this is the app name here. And after that, we have ng controller. This is one component of AngularJS. That is, controller is a directive of AngularJS. And its name will be my controller. And we'll look what is this controller in the next slides. And here, after that, we have written curly braces, two curly braces, first name and curly braces. So what is this? What is this? Can anyone tell what is this in the comment section? I guess there is a lag in the comment section because of the network issue. So I'll only tell uh, this first name is basically an expression. So it won't print first name. Instead of that, it will print the value which is present inside the first name. So let's move on to the script part, that is AngularJS part. Here we are creating a variable that is app using where keyword. And here to create a module, this is the syntax, like Angular dot module inside the bracket or parenthesis, we have to mention the app name, that is module name or the app name. So here it is my app, and after that, comma and square bracket which is empty. Not normally it's empty, but we can add several other controllers if required. But here we won't require any other component controller. Sorry, here that's why we have not mentioned anything inside those square brackets. And after that, we have to end it with a semicolon. So that is the syntax of creating the module. And inside, after that, we have to write, like, as we have stored that module inside the variable called app, we'll use that variable to call out the controller. Okay. And to call out, we are calling this controller to create a function. Okay. So here it is just that we are printing John instead of first name. That's why we have to write a function. So how do we write the function? It's by using controller. Okay. So that's why we have mentioned here app.controller inside parenthesis my control, that is controller name, and after that what we are creating, a function. That's why we have given a keyword function, and inside that we have mentioned an object, that is $scope, which is a predefined object which is used to create variables. Okay, because further we have to create a variable called first name, right? That is inside the curly bracket we have written $scope dot first name equals to John, right? So that first name is a variable, and to create that variable we need a predefined object, that is what? $scope. Okay, so the $scope is used to create a variable, that is first name. So basically what this program will do is, while that expression is being executed, instead of that first name, John will be printed. That's all. This whole code is for that only. Okay, I hope you're getting this. So let's move on to the next part, that is controllers of AngularJS. So this is one of the important part of AngularJS, that is AngularJS controllers control the data of AngularJS applications. So as modules are just like parent of controllers, like inside the modules, controllers are present, and these controllers are used to control the data, that is the inputs that we give in the web page. Like you can just say by the name, like while telling the name itself, we can say that it is used to control the data because its name itself is controllers, right? Yeah. So AngularJS controllers are regular JavaScript objects. So basically, these controllers are JavaScript objects itself, and it is retrieved from the JavaScript framework using AngularJS. So AngularJS applications are controlled by the controllers. The ng-controller directive defines the application controller. So to define a specific controller of that application or the module, we have to first write ng-controller equals to, then inside of double quotes, we have to write the name of the controller. Okay. So that's how controller is defined. Okay. So a controller is a JavaScript object created by the standard JavaScript object constructor. I hope you're getting what I said. Let's move on to the next part. So this is the example of controllers. So as I said, this is application, right? ng-app equals to my app is written to mention what is the application name or module name. So here the module or application name is my app. And after that, to control the data present inside my app, we have to create one controller, right? So for that, we are using ng-controller to create one controller whose name is my CTRL. Okay, here my CTRL is the controller of my app application or module. So what this whole code means is here there is we are taking input from the user of like we are taking the first name of the user as input, and that will be like given as output. Okay, that's all. So here, as I said before, controller is just used to control the data of that specific application. It says where app equals to angular.module. Here we are creating one module or application named my app. Okay. And after that, we are creating a controller using app variable. So that's why app.controller. And as I said, controller is used to control the data. So here in the function, we are taking we are pre-mentioning or predefining John as the first name until and unless we get input from the user, John will be the first name. Okay. So as we are controlling the data, John, we need controller named as myCTRL. So here we can say that myCTRL is controlling the data called John. Okay, I hope you get it. Let's move on to the next part. So now we'll look on we will create our first page, our first web page using AngularJS. Like whatever we learned in the past few minutes or past half an hour, we'll implement that and create our first web page using AngularJS. And it is very simple problem statement. Like let's read it out. So the problem statement says that develop AngularJS program that allows user to input their first name and last name and display their full name. So what do we mean here is we'll take input from the user in the form of first name and last name, and we'll concatenate it and display it as a full name. Okay. So there is one note here. The default values for the first name and last name may be included in the program. So if the user doesn't give input, we have to keep one default value for first name and last name. Okay. So that's what note means. So basically we have to create a web page where we have to we have to take inputs from the user in the form of first name and last name, and we have to concatenate those first and last name and display the full name. That's all. And we have to keep one default name in case the user doesn't give the input. Okay, so that is our problem statement. So how we're going to solve that is, let's see. So here on the first line, we are writing exclamation mark doc type HTML. So what do we mean by this is we are just mentioning the type of HTML that we are using, that is version of the HTML. So this is the basic structure of HTML that we need to know before we move on to AngularJS. So doc type HTML basically means the version that we are using, that is HTML5. And after that, HTML ng hyphen app. As I said before, what is this? Yeah, in ng hyphen app is a module or application where we'll mention the name of the application. That is full name app. So here we have created a module or application named as full name app. Okay, I hope you understand what do you mean by the syntax. So to create a module, we have to mention ng-app inside the HTML tag itself. And if we don't mention this, then we won't get the output. Simple as that. This is to like enable the CSS, or we can say that we are just after enabling the AngularJS, we are retrieving the framework from the AngularJS. So the next is head, and inside head we have title, AngularJS full name display. So what this means is while we are creating a web page in on the title tag, that is on the URL bar, we'll have AngularJS full name display written over there in the URL bar. And after that, to enable the AngularJS, as I said before, we have to like write a URL of AngularJS framework inside the script tag, right? So that's what we are doing here. Inside the script tag, there is one source, and that's inside that source we are writing the URL so that we can enable AngularJS, and will close the script tag with \script, and finally the head tag will be closed. Okay, so let's move on to the next part, that is the main body. So inside the body we are creating one division, and as I said before, to control the data we need a controller, right? As we are using AngularJS, to control the data that we are taking as inputs, that is first name and last name, we need a controller. So that's why we are creating a controller named as full name controller. So how do we create this? By using the keyword ng slash controller equals to, and inside that we have written the name of the controller, that is full name controller. And as we are controlling the data present inside this division, we are writing this inside the div tag. Okay, so the reason to write it inside div tag is whatever data is present inside this div tag will be controlled by full name controller. Okay, so let's move on to the next part, that is label for first name input. So here, like if you are very well equipped with the HTML part, then you will know that here we are just creating a label for the input that we are taking from the users. So as we want input from the user in the form of first name and last name, we have to create a certain label through which that input will be connected, right? Like if we mention first name, after that only we have to give the input bar, right? So that's why we are creating a label, and inside that label tag we'll mention first name because we are taking input of first name first, and after that we'll take input of last name. Okay, So to take the input, we are writing input tag type equals to text. That is, we are taking the input in the form of text, right? So that's why type equals to text. And after that, ID equals to first name input. So ID will be as if we know, like if we have to connect the label and the input, then we have to mention the ID, right? So that's why we have mentioned first name input, and that itself is written inside the label after for equals to first name input. So it is just to connect label and input. And after that, we have ng model equals to first name. So here we have written a directive that is model. So what do we mean by modulus? It's just a data. Like when we give the input, it should be connected to some model, right? In the backend. So that's why ng model is used whose name is first name. So when we type the first name, it will be connected to first name or binded to the first name, which is further connected to the label first name semicolon. Sorry, colon. Similarly, we'll do that same part for the last name also. That is written in the next 3 line of the code. And after that, we'll create a button. When when we click on that button, it will display the full name concatenated. So that's why we are using button tag and ng hyphen click. What do we mean by ng hyphen click is when we click that button, it will call the function that is display full name parenthesis. So when we click the button, it will call the function whose name is display full name. So that's why we have written ng hyphen click equals to double quotes display full name parenthesis. So this is basically the function that we are calling. And yeah, after that, what will be present inside the button is display full name. It will be written inside the button, and while we press the button, it will call the function. And what will the function do is it will concatenate the first name and the last name. And as it is going to show the concatenated string that is full name, that's why here we are mentioning inside the p tag ng show. So this directive is used to show what is present in the certain expression. So here we are showing the full name variable. We'll create that full name variable in the script tag. Uh, so before moving on to that, just remember that full name is a variable which will be showed when we click that button. Okay, when we click that button, it will show the full name, right? So that's why we are using ng show full name. And here we are using the expression full name. So instead of full name, we'll have the value what is concatenated with the help of first name and last name. So here the division tag ends, and also the controller of the control ends here. Now begins the script tag. So inside the script, we have angular.module. As I said before, to create a module, we have to write this syntax, that is angular.module. Inside that, we have to write the app name that we have mentioned in the HTML tag here. ng-app, that is full name app. We have to write it here also. because that is the name of the module and the application. And after that, we'll, as controller comes under certain module, that's why we have written dot controller, and inside that we have written the controller name, that is full name controller, which is present inside this division tag, because we are retrieving data from that part of controller, right? So that's why we need to mention the name of the controller. And after that, here we are creating one function to concatenate two strings, that is first name and last name. So that's why we have to mention function parenthesis $scope. Here $scope, as I mentioned before, it is just predefined object which is used to create a variable, right? So further, while creating the variable, that is first name, we'll use $scope dot first name equals to John. As in the problem statement, it was mentioned that we have to keep one default value for the first name and the last name. That's why we are already giving value for the first name and last name. Okay. So that's why while creating the variable, that is first name, used with the help of $scope, will give the value of John to the first name variable. Similarly, we'll give Doe as the value for the last name variable. And after that, again, we are creating one function. So the previous function was to give the default name to first name and last name. And this function is to concatenate it. So that's why uh, the function name is display full name. And inside that function is being created with the help of the object, that is scope, $scope dot display full name. This is basically a function. So this is another syntax to write the function. That is function object name, that is $scope dot function name equals to function, and inside the curly brackets we have to write the uh, main body of the function, that is hashtag $scope dot full name. Here we are creating one variable using the object, and in equals to $scope dot first name, plus to create a space we are writing that single quotes, inside that we have one space, then again plus $scope dot last name, and this will be stored inside the full name variable. So basically here, as the default name is Doe and the default last name is default first name is John and default last name is Doe. So basically it will be written as John space Doe inside the full name. Okay. So that's all. And after that, we'll close the parentheses that we had opened, and we'll close the script tag. And finally, the body will be closed, and finally the HTML tag will be closed. So let's look at the uh, output of this. How do we? I have already created one. Uh, I have already written the code inside a notepad, and I have saved it as ajs.html. So here is the output. So as we can see, we have first name, last name, and we have a default name John and default last name Doe. So if we don't input any name while clicking this display full name, we'll get John Doe. But if we write, let's say, Pawan as first name and Acharya as last name, then what is the output that we need to get? It is, of course, Pavan space Acharya, right? So let's see. Here we go. We get Pavan Acharya as the output. So that's all that we can say, that we have got the output that was requested in the problem statement. And here also we have got the default name if the input is not given and it is being displayed. Okay. I hope you understand this problem. That is our first web page of a simple but our first web page using AngularJS. So I hope you liked it and you understood and you got to learn some new things. And if you have any queries, you can ask them in the comment section. I'll reply to them. But I think so there is a network issue. That's why the comment section might be not active, I guess. Then too, I'll wait for some minutes. Let's see if someone has any queries in the comment section. If yes, then I'll try to answer to that. I guess no one has any queries.